السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا مباركا يليق بجلال قدره وعظيم سلطانه، واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له، واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله. ادى الامانه ونصح الامه وكشف الغمه وتركها على المحجه البيضاء لا يزيغ عنها الا هالك. يقول الله سبحانه وتعالى: يا ايها الذين امنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. ويقول الله سبحانه وتعالى: وتعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان واتقوا الله إن الله شديد العقاب. ويقول الله سبحانه وتعالى: يا أيها الناس اعبدوا ربكم الذي خلقكم والذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator, the sustainer, the provider, and the lawmaker. And I bear witness that indeed Muhammad is his last messenger. Peace and blessings be upon him and all of those who follow him until the day of judgment. And that he has delivered the message, the Quran, the miracle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has left for mankind until the day of judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with many blessings. Alhamdulillah for Islam. Alhamdulillah for Quran. Alhamdulillah for Ramadan. We see in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation a lot of diversity. So in the creation of things, He has created angels and jinn and mankind and plants and animals and other creation that we might not know of. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book that He has honored mankind above most of what He has created. Above most of what He has created. And also amongst people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made their diversity. There are believers and then there's disbelievers. And among the believers, there's also diversity. There are those who are awliyaullah, very close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those who are just believers. And from among those awliya, there are messengers and prophets. And from among the messengers and prophets, there are those who are ulil azm. And from among those are the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the role model for mankind and the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we see that among the days, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also specialized or given certain days a special status, like the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. And among the nights, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given special status to certain nights of the year, like the last 10 days or 10 nights of Ramadan. And among those 10, He has given a special status to Laylatul Qadr, as He mentions in His book, خَيْرٌ مِنْ أَلْفِ شَهْرٍ. It is better, it is more good than 1,000 months in worship and reward and opportunities. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also made special days of the week of significance. For example, the day of Friday, of Jum'ah. It is the master of the week, as the Prophet ﷺ says in one hadith. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points out that specific day in His book, O you who believe, if the call for prayer has been made, then rush, hasten to the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hasten to the prayer. So here we are on a very special day of the week, the day of Jum'ah, in a very special month of the year, the month of Ramadan. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these blessed days and hours and nights and times to accept from us our acts of worship and to open our hearts closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to provide us with the taqwa that the whole purpose of this fasting is for. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So the reason we fast is not to feel the hunger or thirst like the needy people. That's not the reason. The reason is not to save some on our meals. The reason is not to socialize at iftar time. The reason is not to get up early in the morning and stay up late at night, or to get our legs tired from standing in qiyam. The reason is to achieve taqwa. And all these other things that I mentioned are outcomes, are byproducts. As we achieve this taqwa, we will have a willingness to go to the masjid in a haste for Jum'ah. We would have a willingness and an eager to fill the masjid early before the khutbah starts. When we achieve this state of taqwa, we will be rushing towards the masjid, not just for Isha and Taraweeh, but for 5 prayers a day. And not just only during Ramadan, but throughout the year. Because the Lord of Ramadan is the Lord of the other 11 months. And this Ramadan is nothing but a training opportunity. It's a camp for the believers to isolate themselves to some degree from the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made halal for us. Food and drink and lawful relationships. These are things that, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in a number of ahadith, if we do with a proper intention, not only are they halal to do, but we get rewarded for it. If we feed our spouses with the proper intention, with compassion, with love, if we feed our children, if we have lawful relationships, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward that believer. But yet, in this month, He has made it illegal for us. He has made it unlawful to eat and drink between certain hours. And the reason is to prep us, is to train us to achieve this state of taqwa. So here we are, about the middle of the month, and alhamdulillah, Allah has granted us the opportunity to be here until this day, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the opportunity to complete the month and to benefit from the remaining days and evenings and nights, inshaAllah. So we start our day in Ramadan with the barakah that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned. Tasahharu fa inna fi as-sahuri barakah. Have sahur early in the morning before Fajr, for indeed in it there is a blessing. Regardless how much or little you eat, that's not the point. The point that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts in this little meal, even if it's just a sip of water and a few dates, He puts a barakah in it. That makes us able to go out throughout the whole day until Maghrib without feeling any hunger or thirst. And subhanAllah, I'm sure many of us have witnessed this. On a typical regular day, if we get up late on a weekend and we don't have our breakfast on the regular time we're used to, or our lunch is delayed, we start to get headaches and we feel hungry and our stomach starts to growl and we're just not comfortable. But this does not happen, alhamdulillah, during Ramadan. Even though we're fasting longer hours, and it might be a hotter season, but it is because of this taqwa, because of this barakah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts for the believer. So this is how the believer starts their day in Ramadan, early in the morning with this simple meal, followed by maybe a couple of rak'at or a few rak'ahs until Fajr prayer, and then we pray Fajr and we start our day. We start our day like the Prophet ﷺ started being energetic and motivated, being active, going around the lands, looking for our provisions and means, spreading the word of Islam, spreading the goodness through our actions and through our connections and communications with people. And then coming back, focusing on the Quran, praying, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, lowering our gaze, preventing ourselves from the desires that are halal. We're not even talking about the desires that are haram, but from the food and the drink, and looking to our spouses with an intimate, feeling. We do this until the time for Maghrib comes. We make dua, we break our fast. As the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, that this nation is still in a good state as long as they hasten the breaking of their fast. Meaning they are giving this break fast, this iftar, a significance. It's not just another activity we do in the day in the middle of other activities. But no, again, they're cognizant of the time of Maghrib. They're getting ready for their prayers. They have their wudu, they break their fast, and they go pray, and then start the evening by remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this siyam is a very special act of worship. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored the act of fasting by the month of Ramadan. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not attribute siyam to Ramadan, but rather He attributes Quran to Ramadan. He mentions that Ramadan is the month that the Quran has been revealed. He does not say Ramadan is the month of fasting. He does mention that there are days we are to fast, and the Prophet ﷺ, of course, explained to us which month that is. But attribution of Ramadan in the Quran is with the Quran itself, and not the act of fasting. But fasting is a very special act, and because of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dedicated it to this very special month, where a very special gift has come down to mankind, the gift of Quran. The miracle that lasts until eternity, until the day of judgment. When the point comes and no one is following this book, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lifts the book from the earth and He calls for the time to end. And why is it special? Because no one knows about it except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As the Prophet ﷺ says or mentions in a hadith Qudsi narrated through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that as-siyamu li, sawm, fasting is for me and I reward. Because all our other acts of worship, people would know about it. If we're praying in the masjid, people would see that Muhammad or Ahmad is coming to pray. So this is known to people or some people. If we're giving zakah or sadaqah, at least one person knows about it. We put a check in the donation box or we give cash to someone, it would be known by that receiving party who that person was giving that donation. Hajj and Umrah, the same thing. We're in the middle of thousands and hundreds and millions of people, except for fasting. Any one of us can pretend to be fasting and sneak into a pantry and grab something to eat or drink, but only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what the abd, the servant, is doing. This fasting trains us on patience. Just like the act of salah, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us throughout the Quran, that worship your Lord, for this act of worship will provide you with taqwa. Whether it's salah or siyam. But specifically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clarifies for us the wisdom of siyam as a way to achieve taqwa, to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this patience trains us on three types of this fasting trains us on three types of patience. The patience of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To get up early, to do the sahur, to do our fajr, to do our 5 prayers. Many of us are neglectful of our prayers during the year. But subhanAllah, when Ramadan comes, we're very cognizant and aware that we have to pray. Many of us pay extra attention to what we say and what we hear and what we see or look at during Ramadan. Many of us pay attention to what we eat after iftar. How did I earn this money? Many of us pay extra attention to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is one type of patience that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is training us during Ramadan. The second type of patience Is patience abstaining from the sins and the evil. A few examples that I mentioned: protecting our tongues, protecting our vision, being away from sinful acts or activities or locations where sins are committed, protecting ourselves and guarding ourselves from things that could take us astray, having good companionship. So this is an act of patience in preventing our desires. And as we gave the example, even the basic desires of this life that are lawful, such as eating and drinking. And then lastly, it trains us on the patience of qada and qadar, preordinance and predestination. We might wake up one day during Ramadan and find it a pleasant, nice, beautiful day. We don't feel too thirsty or too hot. But the next day it might be a triple-digit temperature, and we still have to go to work. We still have to fast. We still have to strive on the land. And that is a training in the qada of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of our brothers and sisters fast 22 and 23 hours a day, those who live up north, in the northern parts of the hemisphere. And that is a test for them. That is a training on their patience, again, to accept the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the result is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant these people rewards with no accountability, or very easy accountability. إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أُجُورَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Indeed, the patient shall be paid the result or the earning of this patience with no or very little accountability. As some of the scholars say, fasting is half of patience, and patience is half of the deen, of half of the iman. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر لكم فاستغفروه إنه غفور رحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد خاتم الرسل النبيين ومن اتبعه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. This khutbah might seem to be about Ramadan, which it is sort of indirectly. But the main purpose of this khutbah is the outcomes of Ramadan. Is the taqwa that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves for us to attain during this month. And here we are at the middle of the month, a very good time for us to assess that level of taqwa, each one of us on his own or her own. How much taqwa have I gained in the last 2 weeks? And how much more do I aspire to achieve before Eid embarks upon us? Is Ramadan to me just a light switch that I turn on and off once a year at the beginning of the month and the end of the month? I start getting into the routine of the month, getting up, fasting, breaking my fast, going to dinners almost every night, if not at the masjid 3 days of the week, then maybe at other people's homes. After we come back from work, we gather in someone's house, we make our iftar, and it becomes a routine. And after 10 days or 2 weeks, we're used to it. And we're just waiting for the month to finish, and we flip back the switch, and we go back to our old ways. One way to assess how much taqwa we are achieving, as a community at least, is on the day of Eid, to find out how full or empty the masjid is. And subhanAllah, it is very sad. Usually the Isha of the day of Eid, the masjid is empty. If not the night before, the last night of Ramadan, when everyone knows that this is it, this is the last iftar, they've seen the hilal, tomorrow is Eid, let's make sure we got all our shopping. We find very few people that night of Eid at the masjid. But then next morning the masjid is full for Eid prayer, which is a sunnah prayer. But alhamdulillah, it is great to follow the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But what are our priorities? What is our command saying? The command is saying pray in the masjid Isha. It's not saying do Eid before Isha. So when we find the masjid has over 1,000 people next morning, but hardly 15 the day before or the night before, there's something wrong. This taqwa has not been achieved. We're confused. We think we've achieved taqwa, It might be temporary, but it did not even last for 24 hours. So my challenge to myself and everyone is to assess ourselves in the middle of this month. Where are we on the barometer of taqwa? Do we have an urge to come to the masjid early on Friday? Because that is a sign of يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا نُودِيَ لِلصَّلَاةِ مِنْ يَوْمِ الْجُمْعَةِ. That is a sign of the believer. If we are dragging our feet or running late because we have to close that business transaction or we had to leave a little late from our workplace, then the taqwa is incomplete. It did not settle into our hearts. So what is our attitude about Ramadan? Am I welcoming this guest who comes only once a year? Am I preparing for this guest just like I prepare for a trip or a journey? Many of us travel sometimes back to our home countries for a week or two or a month. And we spend weeks ahead of this event planning, purchasing tickets, making sure we got our luggage in place, we got the gifts for the people we're going to visit, where everything is intact. We have someone to drop us at the airport. Are we doing the same thing with Ramadan? Weeks ahead of its start time, planning for it? What am I going to do the first week, the second week, the third week, the fourth week? What are my objectives? How much Quran do I need to read? See, the matter is not reading the whole Quran during the month. The matter is whatever we read, we understand and apply. Whatever we read, we truly feel an urge in our heart to read it and understand it. Not just because we want to flip the pages and read the 600 pages, but because we want to do something with it. We want it to bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Are we complaining about the long days? Are we complaining about our lack of sleep? Are we looking at the day of Ramadan as a day full of barakah? A day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with at least 12 hours of daylight that we can be productive and do stuff in. A day where we're not interrupted with our breakfast and lunch and early dinner, where we can work more for this dunya and for the hereafter. Is that the perspective we're looking at? Or are we complaining, oh brother, I'm not getting enough sleep. Oh brother, I can't do this in Ramadan after Eid because Ramadan, this and that, and we're too busy. Busy with what? Busy with what? We have more time, alhamdulillah. And again, if the attitude of the believer is one who's trying to achieve the taqwa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put into everything we have in this month the barakah. Whether it is our time, our money, our effort, our health. So lately in the media we've heard a lot of things that impact us as an ummah. And again, if we are achieving this state of taqwa, we should be doing something about this stuff. Or at minimum, it should intrigue us to think about it and say, as a Muslim, a person, part of a group of Muslims in this county or this state or this country, what is my role in this? So I'd like to reflect on 3 of these things, very briefly inshallah. The first is, last week or the week before, the highest court in this country issued a statement that marriage from the same gender is lawful across the land. And while many of us see this as an issue from an ethical perspective, the Muslim has a very different perspective. It's not just about the marriage itself, although the institution of marriage as a whole is a very sacred institution in our deen and must be protected by all possible means that a believer has ability to do. But there are other underlying issues. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, on the tongue of Maryam, says, وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى, that male and female are not equal, they're not like, they're not the same. And she was a little concerned because she wanted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant her a son who would strive in the land for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A son who would be a prophet or who would do good. But her objective was a son who would work in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, taking care of the house of Allah. Maybe doing, like in our days, adhan, cleaning it and serving the people who come to that place of worship. But because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most gracious, He gave Maryam something better than a servant in the house of Allah. He gave her a mother, a girl, who would leave a legacy until the day of judgment or until the end of time. Someone who would not only serve in the house of Allah, meaning just do acts of worship, but someone who would impact the aqidah of entire mankind. Isa alayhi salam. A messenger and a prophet who would not only do good acts of worship, which is the trunk, but someone who would propagate the aqidah, which are the roots of the tree. A much higher and more important and valuable role in the society. And she recognized that a male and a female are not equal. So this in itself is just one issue related to same-gender relationships. Of course, the marriage aspect everyone understands, we don't need to dwell on that. But there are many other underlying issues as believers we have to be concerned about. How does this affect our children? How does this affect the future of our deen in this land? How does this affect us as believers who can marry multiple wives in certain circumstances when needed? But yet no one is talking about this in the Muslim community, whether it's at an organization, national level or local level. And we find those who are talking about it are people of the book, who are misguided. But yet they stand strong by their values. SubhanAllah, yesterday I was working with one of our interns at a public library in Howard County. As we entered the building, there's these two young men standing at the door, and they asked me a question, would you like to support same-gender diversity? And they're both wearing these yellow t-shirts with the word equality on it. So we both walk upstairs and I look at this 11th grader or 12th grader and I say, brother, we got to do something about it. This is mind-boggling. What equality are they talking about? When Allah says in the Quran that the man and the woman are not equal. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet ﷺ say that this institution of marriage is sacred. It's just like salah and zakah. We cannot change the way we get married. We cannot one day decide that we can get married without two witnesses. With no witnesses. We can't do that. That invalidates the marriage. It does not become marriage. It becomes zina. Something as simple as that. So it is a sacred institution. But yet these people who are misguided believe so firmly in whatever values they believe in, to the point they're just out there spreading their ideology. They're spreading it through corporations, they're spreading it through non-profits, they're spreading it through schools, they're spreading it through media, they're spreading it through every possible way they could spread it. And they have no guilt, they have no bashfulness, they have no embarrassment, because they firmly believe that this is what is right in their perspective. So where are we as Muslims who are fasting on the road to achieve this taqwa? Where are we spreading our values and ideals? I'm not even saying we should go out and preach, but are we even talking about this issue in our own circles? I'm an Egyptian, and when I gather with people in our own circles for iftar, the only topic they talk about is what's happening back in Egypt. The corrupt government and the people against them and this and that. And it's all good to be concerned about the believers across the planet. But first we have to focus on our homeland. Because there are no other people on this planet who are qualified to do anything good in this country except us. And there are no other people on this planet who care to propagate good and prevent evil and believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except the Muslims of America. The Muslims of Egypt are not going to come and fix the problems here. Nor are the Muslims of Saudi or Pakistan. But each locality has to focus on its issues. The fact of the matter is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put us here. Whether we were born here, we came from Africa, from Asia, from Europe, it does not matter. The fact of the matter, we are here. And we have to do something about it. Otherwise, we will end up in a state where we are also tested like other people are tested. And this takes me to our second point. The point of the so-called Islamic State. Another big dilemma and crisis affecting the Ummah at large And the question, what are we doing about it as individuals? What are we explaining to our children? What are we investing in the youth of this country who are confused by everything that's going around them? I mean, put yourself as a 12-year-old. You grow up in a society that talks about certain things are lawful and legal that we know absolutely are not. You see people fighting overseas, raising flags in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they're fighting dictators. They're fighting everyone that comes across their way. You know that media is corrupt and it does not always say the truth. So you're a 12-year-old and you start to ponder and think about this stuff. And you say, well, maybe it is right. The media is wrong, so maybe what I'm seeing is not really happening. Maybe these people are innocent people. Maybe they're fighting for the good. Maybe this is like, the early believers when they used to go down on their horses and swords and fight. That's what Quraysh used to say about them. And since we live in a corrupt world, or some of it is corrupt, maybe this is the truth. And they start to research and get more information, and some of them get misguided. And some of them travel overseas without even their parents' knowledge. Sometimes they're stopped at the airports as young as 17, 18-year-olds, and sometimes they're not. And they make it overseas not knowing what they're doing. As the Prophet ﷺ said in one hadith, there will come a time when a man will kill a man, and both the killer and the one killed don't know why they're doing this. And this is sort of like what we're starting to experience, wallahu a'lam. So what are we investing into our youth? Are we building strong masajid? Are we giving them strong youth facilities? Are we teaching them what it means to grow up in this kind of country or context? Are we teaching them how the Sahaba, the young ones, dealt with the disbelievers? Are we investing in their activities, their education, their intellect? Or we're just keeping them with the video games as a babysitter? And then when we get in our social gatherings, again, they're running around, no one knows what they're doing. Our youth are also in a state of confusion. We're seeing a lot of people leave the deen in their 20s because for 20 years they were raised in a Muslim household, but the message did not click. It did not mean too much to them other than rituals people are doing, and it was not explained properly. And the last third thing I want to touch on real quick is a person who's running for elections, a former wife or wife of a former president, and the media is telling us in 2 months she raised $45 million. $45 million, which is not a large amount for a country this vast. If every donor, if every voter in this country pays a couple of bucks, she got her 45 million. But the question is, she's telling people, hey, I'm 67, I was the wife of a former president, I was Secretary of State, so I'm qualified to run this country. So vote for me. And people are giving her support. 42 million means that she's getting support. The highest number that was raised in such a short period of time. It's a record for this country. So again, we ask ourselves, her values and ideals compared to the values and the ideals of the Prophet ﷺ. Which one would we choose? If she's able to raise 42 million, why can we not raise similar amounts within our regions? Why are our masjids struggling to raise 5,000 and 10,000, amounts that are today considered nothing? They're considered change in the world of organizations and communities. Why are our children suffering to get $2,000 to put a basketball hoop? A professional one. I'm not talking about a $200 one you can get from Costco. Why is that? Because again, we're not paying attention. Our priorities are mixed. Just like we go to Eid and skip Isha, our priorities are mixed. We focus on spending $200 to invite these 5 families every week, but we hold back of donating just 20 a week to the masjid. When the masjid says, hey, fill out a pledge form for $80 a month, we say, no, I can't. But I can spend $500 a month inviting families to my home every single week. And there's nothing wrong inviting the families. As a matter of fact, the Prophet ﷺ recommended that we spread the salam and we spread the food and we eat together. But it does not have to be a $200 meal. It could be a $40 meal. We do not have to put raisins and nuts in the rice. It could just be plain rice with simple vegetables. Because the Prophet ﷺ, the best man who ever walked this planet, used to sleep on a very humble bed and used to eat cracked bread and dates. He did not have lavish iftars. He did not have lavish gatherings. But yet he had gatherings. He had gatherings that were blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where one piece of meat would feed an entire army. Not because it was well cooked or was served on a fancy tray, but because it had pure intentions. Every single person in that army and the leader of that army had pure intentions. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from among those who benefit from this month. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from among those who can set our priorities correctly and follow through them in this month and after the month is over. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us and to educate us and our children in the matters of this deen. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from the people of the Quran who read the book, who memorize the book, and who apply the book. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us set some goals for this month before it is over. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us energetic and have some azm and azima in order to fulfill some of these goals. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the best of this month. اللهم اجعل جمعنا هذا جمعا مرحوما واجعل تفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما ولا تجعل بيننا شقيا ولا محروما ثم نسأل قبل الموت توبة وعند الموت شهادة وبعد الموت جنة ونعيما مقيما اللهم اتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم اتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم اتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم إنك عفو كريم حليم تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم إنك عفو كريم حليم تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم إنك عفو كريم حليم تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا واستر ولايانا وبارك لنا في شبابنا وبناتنا وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد خاتم الرسل النبيين وأقم الصلاة.